Sir, let's start by talking about the exercise which is happening in the state of Bihar, and the matter has reached the Supreme Court. The Election Commission argues that they are doing their basic duty of verifying the voters, but the petitioners think otherwise. What is your view?
So, if the Election Commission were to just include names of people who have become major and entitled to vote in this election and exclude names of people who've died, that exercise they are definitely entitled to do. They are also entitled to see that if a person is actually not residing at a particular place and he is still carrying a voter identity at that place, probably that also they can do. If they are having sufficient material to show that, or they have some material to show that he is already a voter in some other constituency, because on their website they can find it out. But in my view, any exercise which they do, which results in removal of a name which was already there in the last election, is beyond their jurisdiction. The jurisdiction with them is only to, do as I said earlier, the removal of dead names and including names. The exercise of deciding that you are not a citizen at the time of this kind of an exercise is actually a job of the Home Ministry, and this can't be done by the Election Commission.
Is the Election Commission doing that? Are they really verifying who's a citizen? Or they are trying to do what they say, that we are trying to sieve through the fraudulent voters and make sure it's only the genuine voters who are voting in the elections?
So the exercise, the kind of documents that they are asking for, clearly is to find out whether people are citizens of the state or not. But having said that, there is one small caveat which they can exercise. If they are looking at a person or a family who was not a voter earlier and who's wanting to become a first-time voter in the Bihar election this time, then in that case, while before giving him the right to franchise, they definitely have the right to satisfy themselves whether he's a citizen or not. So the exercise can be taken in three parts. One is to do the exercise of finding out whether people have died or not and to remove them from the roll. The second part is to include people who have become major and who were not majors in the last election. And the third is to make a completely new family or a new person as a voter who was not in the system at all. As far as the third category is concerned, they can do all that they want to satisfy themselves that he is a citizen. And to that extent, their right to examine any document would be completely justified.
There was this one exercise, NRC, which was under a lot of criticism. The government said it had reasons to do it. It was conducted in Assam by the orders and under the aegis of the Supreme Court of India. But is that criticism correct that this is NRC backdoor?
So definitely, an NRC was done by the Home Ministry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So if the Home Ministry was doing it, they were also trying to actually verify the genuineness of the citizenship of the people living in that state. That exercise also has criticism, as you rightly said. It's not as if that exercise also is completely unfettered, because somebody who's been a citizen of this country and who's enjoyed the advantages of being a citizen, to suddenly take him out from the rolls is actually a very, very, I would say, legalistic task. Because we all know that citizenship is not acquired merely because you are, born in this country or your father was a citizen in this country. Citizenship is also acquired by, by many other ways. Like, for instance, if you migrate from some other country and start living here and live here for a certain number of years, or if you are you are a person of Indian origin and start living here, your family had gone to some other country and you are back in this country and you have not taken citizenship of any other country, then you can become a citizen of this country as well. And once you become a citizen, to remove you from the benefit of being a citizen is according to me is a task which has a lot of civil consequences, and that can't be done lightly.
I think a fundamental question has to be asked. How does one determine the citizenship, that you're a citizen of this country? What document do I have to produce? Is there a law that tells us about it?
So it's a very interesting question. So if you were to ask me, of course I have a passport, so passport is a proof of your citizenship. But if you don't have a passport, then which document will certify that you are a citizen of this country? You can only show your residence, and even if you're owning property, that is not also a guarantee of your citizenship. You may have come in and bought some property. You may have taken an Aadhaar, you may be having a ration card. So any document that you have in the usual course by itself will not prove your citizenship. Because there is no document which actually goes into the method of finding out whether you are a citizen of India or not.
Okay.
Your residence in a particular place, that also is not your citizenship. You may be residing in some place for 20 years, you may have come from somewhere, started residing, that's not your citizenship. You may buy property, that is also not your citizenship. So if you ask me, there is no document other than a passport which will conclusively establish that you are a citizen of this country. So this exercise, according to me, and especially the timing of this exercise, just prior to the election, in such a short, very, very, I would say, truncated, period of this thing, the whole exercise is being done. If the Election Commission has the power to do this, it will be a power which will be an ongoing power which they should be doing for the entire country over a period of time, not for elections.
Okay.
They can verify. So, for instance, I'm sure there must have been occasions where somebody from the Election Commission must have visited your home to find out whether you are a voter or not.
Yes, they have.
And they also find out in your family who all are there, and they do that. That's a routine exercise which they are supposed to be doing. And traditionally, that's the only exercise which they are supposed to do. Beyond that is not their mandate. That's the mandate of the Home Ministry, to disenfranchise somebody, to say you are not a citizen.
But you also spoke about the timing of this exercise.
This is actually very suspect. Why should they do it in this? Just imagine a worker, a migrant worker working in Delhi. He may be working here on daily wages, may not be carrying all his documents. Now they say you upload it in Delhi. If the documents are not with him in Delhi, how does it upload in Delhi? If he goes back to Patna and to fill up the documents, and then he finds that his name is not there in the draft list which is published for the first time, then he is expected to go back again to remove the defects. You think it is humanly possible to do this exercise, especially for the common man?
When the Supreme Court tells the Election Commission that you have to be inclusive in your approach and make sure nobody is excluded, they have still not said that accept Aadhaar. They have said that people can present an Aadhaar to you and you have to decide whether it's acceptable or not. Do you think that with the present documents and the position that the Election Commission has taken, Aadhaar or a ration card is something that an ordinary person can go present to the Election Commission and say, look, these are my documents? And is there clarity on the grounds on which the Election Commission can reject these documents actually?
Firstly, I think Supreme Court could have or should have stayed it in the first place. But the Supreme Court, if you recall, in the first hearing, had also said to include all possible documents to let people take advantage of being a citizen of this country. And in spite of that order in the vacation, they have filed an affidavit saying that no, we will not relax whatever we have said so far. And even the hearing in Supreme Court yesterday, I think Justice Suryakant is not wanting to, undermine the authority of the Election Commission because it's an independent body, and to stop them doing from some exercise will mean as if it were doing something completely illegal.
Yeah.
But if you see his oral observation that the intent should be to include than to exclude, and that is, I think, quite a sufficient hint for the Election Commission to continue this exercise with that mandate, rather than just looking for loopholes in the documentation of every person, especially a common man. And say that you don't fulfill the requirement of the Election Commission and accordingly you are no more a voter in Bihar. So this is how they are trying to nudge the Election Commission the right way, rather than straight away saying that what you're doing is not correct. Because the moment they say that what you're doing is not correct, in a very big way undermines the authority of the Election Commission to do this exercise at all. And in my view, the exercise can be done, but of course not in the manner in which it is being done.
In the history of independent India, have we had an exercise of this nature?
To my knowledge, Election Commission has never done it. If at all, if they would have done it at the time when we got independence, I would not. I don't know. But I don't think even at that point of time, this kind of exercise was done to decide the voters at that point of time. So if it was not done then, to do it now is definitely something which cannot be justified.
So the other side of the argument is that the problem of illegal immigration in India is a very real one. There are many border states where it's proven that the demographic balance has been tilted, and there are a lot of people living illegally. A lot of people illegally settled in different parts of the country. And is there a method and way that you can still continue to verify your voters, and some way to identify that people who are not actually citizens of India don't become a part of the electoral process? Because a lot of times people residing illegally in India are used as vote banks by various political parties?
So the answer again is in two parts. So you should not firstly allow people to come in like this, and the exercise should happen on a regular basis to ensure that it doesn't happen. Now you have failed there in ensuring that people don't come in the country illegally. Once you've failed in that exercise and you've permitted people to come and live in a particular area and they live there for decades, are they not in one sense a true stakeholder of an election which is happening in that area, because they are the people who will be ultimately be getting the benefit of a good administration or suffering a misrule. So if you want to elect somebody at a particular point of time, if I look at it just simply from the as a larger picture, are they not the real stakeholders to decide who should be ruling them, and if a better rule will make their life better and a misrule will make their life miserable. So vote bank is something which we are assuming as if anybody will vote at the dictate of somebody. Now, when we have adult franchise and every person has got an equal vote, you don't go by the intellectual capability of a person to vote. You know, every person, whether it be a sweeper or whether it be a person doing, the most menial job, has an equal vote like you and me.
Yeah.
So what is his consideration to vote is to be decided by him individually. So to say that he is a vote bank for somebody is actually demeaning a human being. You are there in that area, you are living in that area, and you have been permitted to live because of the inaction of the state in you migrating from some other country. In the Supreme Court, we have a category of voting is decided on the basis of regular practitioners. The most important criteria is that you should be appearing in court. You should have appearances. But there is one criteria in Supreme Court of people coming to the Supreme Court. Okay. They may not be having matters to, but they come and sit every day. So they also have vote in Supreme Court elections. Now somebody can say, but they don't have any matter in court, or they hardly have any matter. They have once in a while matter. Why should they be allowed to vote? But the purpose is that they are there in the institution and coming and using the facility, sitting there. They are having, they are stakeholders in the sense of the facilities of the Supreme Court. So why should they not have vote? So it's something like that, akin to that. You may not be technically eligible to vote, but you are still a voter because you are living there. And you've been permitted to live there because nobody has taken action against you. Nobody has taken the proactive action to ensure that you should not come into this country. Then you have been given these documents which normally you don't give to a foreigner. And these documents are all there with this person who's living in this country. So to disenfranchise him is no solution if you are not able to remove him from the country. If he continues to remain in the country.
The argument of Election Commission that we will not accept Aadhaar as a proof of citizenship takes me back to the time when the battle of Aadhaar was being fought at the Supreme Court. The 5-judge bench that heard the matter, it was extensively argued in the privacy matter as well. And at that point, it was said repeatedly that Aadhaar will not be a proof of citizenship. But it was also this one identification government was really banking upon. That, this is something like a social security card, and if you have the Aadhaar, then we know where the money is going to come. But suddenly, there is a mistrust that has come around Aadhaar. I mean, we're talking about Election Commission. I can tell you that various land departments in some states today are not accepting Aadhaar as a proof of many things. I recently had a rent registry done at a local office in Delhi, and the local officer told me, I don't want your Aadhaar, just give me some other document. And I was surprised. I had similar experiences in some other different parts as well. So why suddenly from a position of, this is the thing, Aadhaar is the thing, to a position where for important things we want to exclude Aadhaar? That's a shift.
So apparently, I mean, the only reason that I can think of for this shift would be the authorities who have handled Aadhaar have not done it properly, or they have mismanaged it. They have given it Aadhaar to people, and I know of people having, ideally you can't have a second Aadhaar, but people have a second Aadhaar because it's a retina based this thing, and the moment you have one Aadhaar, then your retina gets into the system and that can't be duplicated by a second Aadhaar. But people have duplicate Aadhaar. So somewhere the system or the software which originally, on the basis of which Aadhaar was initially conceived, must have developed some loopholes for people to misuse, because of which you are distrusting. But the answer is not in distrusting. The answer is to, again, better the system and ensure that Aadhaar is not misused, rather than saying that this document also will not be now accepted for the purposes of doing your legal documentation.
And if this has to be done nationally, don't you think this has to be more methodical? There should be more awareness about it, because Election Commission wants to do it across the country.
So they should do it. So for instance, there is a move to link the Aadhaar with the voter card. There is a move to link the Aadhaar with the PAN card. So they should do all this exercise, but it should be a continuing exercise. It should not be done with an agenda that there is something happening in the next couple of months and we have to do that before that. Because then it creates a problem. Then it creates all these issues of people being left out because of the typical, I would say, bureaucratic red tape. And we all face that in the country.
We all face that. Sir, my last point with you, of course, the Supreme Court is going to decide the legality of the of this move, and the matter is sub judice. But in your understanding, is there an intricate way that the autonomy of the Election Commission can be preserved, yet people on the ground who don't have proper identifications or who are genuine voters suffering from bureaucracy or red tape, is there a way that this balance can be struck by the judiciary?
In my view, the Supreme Court has given the Election Commission sufficient nudge, and they will be well advised to, accept that nudge and themselves make the whole process more inclusive rather than exclusive. And if they do that before the next date, probably their authority will not be undermined.